Welcome back to the Explainer. Okay, today we are literally packing your mental suitcase. We're looking at a fantastic breakdown of Canadian cultural vocabulary perfectly tailored for the CLPP exam. We're going to explore not just the translations, but the actual cultural context examiners are listening for. Now, we'll be speaking mostly in English today, but I'm going to strategically drop the exact Chinese terms from our source document so you can lock these concepts into your memory for those critical test tasks. Let's get into it. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our mental mind map for today's high-yield vocabulary lesson. First, lodging and vacation styles. Then, itinerary and flying. And finally, transport modes and tour types. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, lodging and vacation styles, setting up the trip. These words, absolute core point grabbers for writing Task 1 and speaking Task 5. So our first word is a 5-star absolute must-know, accommodations. Now, in North America, we almost always use this as a plural noun, and the verb form is accommodate. In Chinese, you'd say 住宿 or 住处. It's a medium difficulty word, sure, but you absolutely need it ready to go for the exam. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the cultural nuance. A lot of test takers just say hotel, but Canadians, we vastly prefer the umbrella term accommodations. It covers the whole shebang, a fancy hotel, a roadside motel, or just a cozy little Airbnb. Using this specific word tells the examiner, hey, I actually understand North American phrasing. So how do we actually use it to get those points? Well, you can find accommodations, but the real high-scoring phrase you want to drop is sort out our accommodations. Just like in our source documents example. Before we buy plane tickets, we should sort out our accommodations for our trip to Nepal. Memorize that verb, sort out. It sounds so incredibly natural. Okay, let's put on our exam strategy hats for a second. Look at this sentence. I am writing to express my extreme disappointment with the accommodations provided during our tour. Listen to that. This is a simulated real test sentence, perfectly crafted for a writing Task 1 complaint letter. If they ask you to complain about a bad trip, this sentence frame is literally gold. Write it down, practice it, use it. Moving right along, we've got a 4-star fundamental word, campsite. It's a noun translating to lu ying di. Lu ying di. You're going to hear this one a ton in the listening sections, especially when folks are chatting about their weekend plans or daily leisure. And why is it so common? Because camping is a hardcore local favorite here. Canadians absolutely love summer camping in these stunning spots like Banff or Jasper. Honestly, every spring, locals frantically jump onto the Parks Canada website just to reserve a campsite. Now, as our source hilariously points out, bringing a tent and paying for a campsite is probably the cheapest way to travel, but it's definitely not the most comfortable. Now, if roughing it at a campsite isn't quite your style, you might prefer a resort. This is another solid 4-star word. It means 度假胜地 or 度假村. For collocations, you'll want to use stay at a resort or book an all-inclusive resort. And this brilliantly illustrates a massive piece of Canadian culture you need to know for the CELPIP, the snowbird phenomenon. You see, Canada has these long, freezing winters, so to escape the cold, many Canadians, we affectionately call them snowbirds, or 候鸟族, they fly south to warmer places like Cabo in Mexico or Cuba. And where do they stay? An all-inclusive resort, where literally all the food and drinks are covered. This whole snowbird lifestyle is a classic background setting for CELPIP listening conversations. Knowing this gives you a huge edge. All right, Section 2, itinerary and flying. The journey itself. We've booked our lodging, now let's actually travel. So we're at the airport, which brings us to an absolute 5-star mandatory word for listening scenarios, layover. It's a noun translating to 短暂停留, 短暂停留. Basically, a flight connection delay. You have to know this one. Here's the thing. Canada is vast. It's massive. Because of that, cross-country flights almost always require a stop. A classic route might be taking off from Vancouver on the west coast, having a 5-hour layover in a central hub like Calgary before you finally reach your destination in Toronto. If you hear someone complaining in an airport listening prompt, I guarantee you they're probably stuck on a long layover. And speaking of complaining, look at this crucial real test simulation for speaking task 6, where you have to deal with a difficult situation. My flight was delayed, and now I'm stuck in Toronto with an overnight layover. Seriously, memorize this exact structure. Being able to effortlessly drop the phrase, stuck with an overnight layover, will make you sound so incredibly fluent. Next, let's group these two foundational words together, sightseeing and destination. Sightseeing, or 观光, is fantastic for describing, say, walking around old European cities. And destination, meaning 目的地, that's a 5-star word you'll hear daily on your GPS or from a pilot announcing, we'll reach our destination in 20 minutes. So the crucial point here is how we actively choose our vocabulary. An average learner just says trip, which kind of implies short, everyday travel. But if we want to elevate our vocabulary for that higher score, replace it with journey. Journey implies this long, epic exploration. It is the perfect 3-star word to describe a 7-day cross-Canada exploration across mountains and lakes. Moving on to our final section, Section 3, Transport Modes and Tour Types. Let's look at activities on the ground. Okay, picture this. You're standing on Toronto's TTC subway, or maybe Vancouver's SkyTrain. Suddenly, the loudspeaker crackles. Attention passengers! That word passengers is a 5-star foundational word. Knowing this specific announcement phrase is actually a massive hint for listening part 2, where they test broadcast instructions. If you hear attention passengers, boom, you instantly know who the instruction is targeting. Now, once you're actually at your vacation spot, you might book an excursion. This is a 4-star advanced word, it's a noun, translating to 远足, or a short group tour. You'll absolutely need this for reading travel brochures or understanding tour bookings in the listening test. Key collocations here: take an excursion, make an excursion, or assure excursion. Let's anchor excursion firmly in Canadian culture, because taking a cruise up to Alaska or down to the Caribbean is incredibly popular here. When that cruise ship docks at a port, passengers step off for half-day or full-day localized trips. These are explicitly called excursions. Our source gives a brilliantly localized example: a 1-day bird-watching excursion on Gabriela Island in British Columbia. This is exactly, and I mean exactly, how the CELPIP frames this vocabulary. All right, our final word for today's explainer is motorboat. It's a 3-star noun, meaning 气艇, 气艇. And the absolute best, most natural collocation to use: fire up the motorboat. Let's move to this and see how this builds a picture of the ultimate classic Canadian summer. Canada literally has tens of thousands of lakes. So in the summer, families flock to their cottages or cabins right by the water. And their weekends, they're spent firing up the motorboat to go fishing or just cruise around. Knowing this specific cultural backdrop is an absolute game changer for speaking tasks where you have to describe a picture or tell a story about an outdoor experience. Wow, we have covered a lot of ground today, from all-inclusive resorts to firing up that motorboat. So I have to ask, have you packed these cultural nuances into your mental suitcase to secure those top CELPIP scores? Because memorizing a word's translation just isn't enough. Understanding the Canadian context behind it is what truly impresses the examiners. Look at the rest of your study list. What other hidden cultural secrets are just waiting to be uncovered? Keep studying, and we'll see you next time.